final item is 10E, adopt a resolution authorizing the receipt and allocation of $30,174 in grant funds from the California Board of State and Community Corrections to enhance homeless outreach efforts.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. The proposed resolution seeks to enhance efforts to provide housing resources to the transient population within San Bruno by investing one-time grant funding into a collaborative program that will supplement existing work being completed to address this issue. As you know, the county has established a contractual relationship with Life Moves to provide homeless outreach workers to all cities within the county. While this program continues to experience success, its greatest challenge is staffing, and homeless outreach workers are spread quite thin as they attempt to address homeless-related issues in multiple cities. The California Board of State and Community Corrections, or BSCC, was established in 2012 in conjunction with the state's realignment program as an independent statutory agency that provides leadership to the adult and juvenile criminal justice systems. The BSCC's work involves extensive collaboration with stakeholders, including local probation departments, county administrative offices, justice system partners, community-based organizations, and others. This work includes administering a host of federal and state public safety grants. The BSCC's City Law Enforcement Grant of the Budget Act of 2016 allocated $512,971 to law enforcement agencies within San Mateo County. The associated mandate of this grant is to increase positive outcomes between municipal law enforcement and high-risk populations. Local law enforcement agencies may use the funds to supplement, not supplant, efforts in one of 7 areas, including homeless outreach teams. Rather than spend the aforementioned funds as a county, the San Mateo County Police Chiefs Association decided to disperse these funds equally in the amount of $30,174 to each law enforcement agency within the county. While the decision regarding the manner in which these funds are to be dispersed has been made by the Chiefs Association, each city is tasked with determining how these funds shall be allocated. The San Bruno, South San Francisco, Burlingame, Colma, Hillsborough, Brisbane, and Broadmoor police departments have expressed a desire to allocate this funding in a manner that would enhance homeless outreach efforts. These law enforcement agencies have met with Life Moves as a group to develop a plan to expand the homeless outreach team's impact on homelessness through dedicated efforts specific to the aforementioned cities. The proposed funding will allow Life Moves to increase its capacity to provide these services by dedicating additional staff resources to serve homeless individuals in the participating cities. The Life Moves outreach program takes a regional approach, serving homeless individuals and families in our community. Case managers conduct outreach to homeless individuals in 5 currently identified regions in San Mateo County. Each city named in this funding plan is served by a homeless outreach worker in one of the 5 regions. This service will remain interrupted. The proposed additional funding will allow Life Moves to create a 6th region that will dedicate its efforts specifically to participating cities. Life Moves and police department representatives communicate weekly regarding homeless individuals and discuss any issues that may arise. This one-time funding will expand Life Moves' impact and increase its capacity to more effectively serve the homeless. The additional funding will allow Life Moves to increase its capacity to provide additional outreach services. Life Moves will dedicate a member of the outreach team to serve the cities that are involved in participating in this effort. The outreach workers will meet with law enforcement regularly to identify where homeless individuals reside and work to develop a rapport, make referrals to primary and behavioral health care, connect homeless folks to housing resources, and provide access to basic needs such as meals, showers, toiletries, and emergency shelter. It will also continue to enrich the relationship and collaborative efforts between Life Moves and key law enforcement agencies. Life Moves outreach staff will work remotely in available office space within each of the participating police departments. There is no fiscal impact associated with the receipt and allocation of these funds, and staff recommends that council adopt the resolution authorizing the receipt and allocation of these funds to support this effort. Thank you for your consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great idea. You have a question, Marty?
Thank you for the report. Approximately how many homeless average are there in San Bruno?
I think the last census, they do an annual homeless census, which admittedly is not very reliable. And I think we were up to several dozen, just under 100 identified homeless. we believe that it ranges anywhere from larger to that to below that, in that range, because some of these folks are transitory in nature.
Right. I think it's great that we're going to be supplementing the outreach. My concern is my experience in how the encampments are handled. I've spoken to Life Moves, and I wanted to have a better understanding of when they encounter a homeless encampment. I think it's very important that the homeless are told, we can help you, but you can't camp along the railroad tracks on Huntington. You can't camp behind the 7th Avenue on the county property. So when I express I guess when I question Life Moves about, well, what do you do? Well, I was told, we don't tell them to move. And I was a little surprised by that. And I understand why that they're not the enforcement side of it, but I think it's really important that to be sensitive to the homeless, but the only way they're really going to get the help is if they leave that campsite. They can't hang out. It's not clean. It attracts other illegal activity. And I understand it's totally not illegal to be homeless, but there are some things that go along with the campsites. So I guess I want to clarify our policy in with Life Moves, that we have to make the message very clear. Like, you can't camp here if you're homeless. You have to come with us, or you have to go somewhere else. But you can't camp out in a parking lot. You can't camp out anywhere. You need to get the help, and here's the hand to help you. And if we're not telling them that message, and it appeared to me that Life Moves needs to be told that they have to tell the homeless to move, or the police have to be involved to tell them to move, or somebody. But I think that need of getting out of the encampment is important to be told from day one.
Yeah, I can respond to that. The Life Move staff is subject to the same legal restrictions that law enforcement is subject to. We can't remove people or tell them where they can be and where they can't be. There's case law that has established that these folks have certain rights, and we can't force them to accept or services that are offered. I think it's safe to say that Life Moves and a variety of other organizations is prepared to offer services that I believe would adequately house the population, our homeless population in San Bruno, at least the ones that are frequent here and not just passing through. The challenge, and I think it's a historical challenge, is those folks who are not interested in those services. And sometimes it'll take an extended period of time for one individual to be convinced to receive services. They cannot be imposed upon them unless there's some type of mental health issue that we could articulate that the person needs to be under some type of imposed care, and then that would be a physician would make that final determination. So I guess to answer your question is legally we're not allowed to do some of those things, and either is Life Moves. The value of Life Moves as opposed to some other organizations is there are several altruistic organizations out there who truly are well-meaning and their heart is in the right place. The value that we found in Life Moves is we share an ultimate goal where we want to eliminate homelessness as a problem and find shelter and resources for these folks. And they share that mission with us, where there are some other organizations out there that are similar, that are more focused on providing services to the homeless folks in the field. Not to say that we don't do that, because we care about their well-being, but Life Moves has represented and they have walked the walk in addition to talking the talk to really have a goal of getting these people off the street, where some of the other organizations don't share. I mean, nobody wants people to be homeless, but Life Moves has been that one organization that's really been a true partner with law enforcement to kind of take some steps to get closer to that goal.
So for the record, I'm supporting what they're trying to do. I'm just,
Yeah, I guess to answer your question is, we can't tell them that they can't be where they're at. We can't force them to move. We can't seize their property. We can tell them, but they don't have to. They don't have to abide by what we're telling them.
Right, that first step of telling them that you can't be here, I'm here to help you, but you can't sleep here, so come with me, or what's the option? At some point, and maybe this is for the city attorney, at some point, the encampment gets to a certain size, and then they have rights. They're given notice that they have to leave within 30 days and take their possessions, because it happens in the bigger cities, and it's happened here in San Bruno a few times with encampments having to be.
Yeah, there's a process that we use on a regular basis. It's not
Right.
30 days. I believe it's 3 days, 72 hours. They have a
72 hours?
72-hour notice, and we've implemented that several times. The problem is we're kind of kicking the can down the road sometimes, because we'll find the same individuals either moving into our downtown area or finding someplace else to go within the city, because they receive that notice and they're forced to leave a particular area. Doesn't make all of them see the light and accept services.
I'm not arguing that at all. I understand that it's going to move them somewhere else, but moving them to receive the help is I guess what I'm trying to define what our official response is. And I'm hearing a little bit of it is that if it gets to a certain size, then we can give them 72 hours.
Well, size is not the relevant issue. It's when they kind of set up a semi-permanent place that they're living. We can take action on, depending on who the property belongs to, on moving them along. To be honest, in my short time in San Bruno, we've done that several times, and the homeless individuals are more familiar with we call it an eviction process, than we are in most cases. And they know exactly what's going to happen, and they just simply move from one spot to the other. And when we do that, we send in life moves beforehand. For example, we had one not far from here, and we sent in life moves. We coordinated with Caltrans because it was Caltrans property. They served these folks and let them know that they had to leave. We had a crew ready to come in to clean up the area. And what we did was we preempted that, and we sent in life moves beforehand, a few days before, saying, hey, this is coming. And all of the individuals in the camp were familiar with the process because they'd been through it several times before. Here's what we can do. We can get you housing. We can get you in, we can offer you services. And unfortunately, more often than not, people aren't interested, and they simply just pack up and move on. However, the value of having a Life Moves homeless outreach worker is our outreach worker pretty much knows our regulars by name and is constantly interacting with them and dealing with them. And there have been some cases where we've been successful, or I should say the homeless outreach worker has been successful and finally convinced somebody to receive services. But you'd be surprised how long that can take sometimes, and how reluctant people living on the street are to accepting those services in many cases. And I understand what you're saying. I understand your frustration. We share that frustration, but the law doesn't allow us to do some of the things that you're.
And I'm not asking us to go in there and pick people up. I'm just, you explained well that with Caltrans, they went ahead and gave them notice, and we do that, and I didn't hear that in the earlier part of the discussion.
Yeah, we're working on another one down by the train tracks. It's actually BART property, so it depends on who the property owner is. If it was all San Bruno, it'd be a little bit easier because we'd have control over everything. But oftentimes we're working with multiple entities, and some of their bureaucracies we have to work through are a little bit more difficult than others. But Life Moves is always part of that, and they're kind of we're the enforcement arm. We're trying to move people out of where we don't belong there, and they're the carrot, so to speak. Where hey, we have. We're trying to provide some incentive for you to accept these services, and it's to be honest, Life Moves has a more difficult job than we do because we have a black and white way of approaching encampments or homeless and legally what they can and can't do. With Life Moves, it's a little bit more subjective because they have to convince folks to accept these services, and it's for them it's much more difficult than it is for us because we have statutes that we follow rather than the persistence that they display in trying to help these people, get out of the environment that they're in.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Rico?
Any other questions? If not, I'd like to go ahead and introduce the resolution for adoption.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye.
Mayor Rouine.
Aye.